You're listening to Strange by Nature, your guide to the strange, weird, unbelievable, and improbable wonders of the natural world.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for being here today. I am Kirk Mona, and I am joined today by Rachel Ginza and Victoria Thompson. We are all professional naturalists who together have scoured the world for weird and wonderful wonders just to please your mammalian brain's desire for novelty. Isn't that nice? Let's do this.
Hey everybody, welcome to the show. So last week I talked about ostriches and how their eggs were...
I think I know what you're talking about, by the way. I thought about it while you were doing it.
I think so too. I think I know this one.
Well, I talked about how their eggs were 1 liter in capacity and could fit 2 dozen chicken eggs inside. But I hinted at the time that there was a bird with an even bigger egg. And let me stress here that was is the operative word, because I'm talking about an extinct animal, the elephant bird.
Yep. I knew it.
All right. You knew it was coming here. So...
Ding, 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 ding.
We think the last
also
elephant
too
birds,
large.
Went extinct around 1,000 years ago, which is a long time.
Because they were large and delicious?
Probably not, actually. Probably not. We'll get into that.
Oh, yeah?
Ooh.
So we think it's around 1,000 years ago. It is a long time ago, not like crazy long time ago. So historically, kind of just put this in your brain. This was around when the Holy Roman Empire was founded. It's also when Leif Erikson founded Vinland in North America, when the Vikings first came to North America. Interestingly, it's also right around when we think gunpowder began to be used in China. So interesting time in the world, definitely not prehistoric. This was kind of, Middle Ages or so.
Yeah.
So there's a few reports of birds that sound an awful lot like elephant birds from as late as the 1700s. But a lot of scholars who've really looked into this point out that these were stories that were told to travelers, and the travelers themselves did not actually see them. And so it is possible that these were stories about a species that had fairly recently gone extinct, but remained as like a cultural memory. Like, oh yeah, no, there's this species out there somewhere. It's like, have you seen it? Well, no, but other people kind of say they have, that sort of thing. So
it's like this really big bird. You don't want to you don't want to deal with it, kind of thing. Yeah.
Right. And so it's could be like a recent cultural memory thing. Hard to say. Either way, we can say, if we say that these birds went extinct mostly in the Middle Ages, but some possibly survived in remote pockets for longer, which is kind of cool. So what is an elephant bird? Well, first of all, it's not an elephant. It's a bird. I hope that part was clear. It
looks a lot like an ostrich.
It does, because it belonged in the same group of birds as ostriches. This is the ratites. They are the long-necked, flightless birds. So we've actually talked about a bunch of them on the show already. There's ostriches from last week. And I think Rachel covered 3 of them.
I covered...
Cassowary.
Cassowary.
And?
I talked about emus and their war.
And kiwi is also
Kiwis?
one of them. Yeah.
Oh my
goodness. We don't
goodness.
think about them as being in that group because they're really different than the rest, but the kiwi is definitely part of that group. They're a flightless bird. And they're also a historical one we haven't talked about, and that's the moa, which is extinct.
Moas,
and the other one that is still alive is the rhea. But really weirdly, the elephant bird is, of all of those, most closely related to the smallest one, which is the kiwi, which is kind of weird. But I will say, that's like technicality.
Evolution is wild.
It's still really distant. Like, based on DNA that was able to be recovered from elephant birds, we believe they split from the kiwi about 54 million years ago. So they've had plenty of time to get different. Yeah, not that closely related. So like last week, let's do the numbers. The elephant bird was big. Interestingly, not hugely taller than an ostrich. They came in at 3 meters tall, or about 9.8 feet. So, a little bit taller. Still intimidatingly
love
large
that.
for a bird. But
Yeah.
don't let that not huge difference in height fool you. The biggest ostriches, if you listened to last week, they top out around 350 pounds, but estimates on the biggest elephant birds puts them at about 1,000 kilograms.
What? No.
No.
Yeah.
Not
Uh-huh.
possible.
So that's
1,000 kilograms?
2,200 pounds.
That's a ton.
It sure is.
They
Literally
weighed a ton.
They weighed a ton.
Literally.
I will point out
like
that's
both metrically speaking and whatever.
yeah,
American.
yeah. They're big, you guys.
What?
That's why they're called the elephant bird. I will point out this is only
I mean, I guess.
500 pounds less than my car. Now look, I drive a Mini Cooper, but still, this is a huge bird, you guys. All right,
Yeah.
2,200 pounds, 1,000 kilos. Like it's amazing. Side note, same as in the raptors.
That's too big.
The radites, females are larger than the males. So when we're talking about the really big ones, we're talking about females. So let's talk about those eggs. Remember last week I said an ostrich egg can
goodness.
hold a liter of liquid, right?
24 chicken eggs.
Well, an elephant bird egg, and we have a good number of them in collections
Wait,
and whatnot to
you
confirm
said
this.
that they were most closely related to the kiwi,
That's right.
who has over. Oh no!
Now, an elephant bird egg had a capacity on the high side as high as 13 liters.
No,
So
That's ludicrous.
that's unnecessarily large.
at 24 eggs per liter, which we already established, that's 312 chicken eggs. You could fit 312 chicken eggs.
Oh God.
Think of the size of that omelet, you guys. That's just like it's.
You'd have to share
Feed
that
somebody.
with
Feed a
you-
family for a week.
No, you-
Wait. Oh, hold on.
one egg
hold on.
would
Time out.
fit-
Time
okay.
out. Time out.
One
Time out.
egg
No,
would
hold on,
feed
Rachel.
my house.
Time out. We gotta go back to what Victoria just said. You said that would feed a
Ooh.
family for a week. How many eggs does your family go through in a week, Victoria?
Well,
Yeah,
a lot. Not
Not
that many eggs.
312?
You're right. That was
I
it was a
think
manner of speaking, Kirk.
think
I was
They
not.
could feed a village
Right.
I
for
said
a
it would
week.
feed my. Yeah, village, my entire town.
Yeah.
I live because I live in a town that it's like 200 people, maybe. That would fit. We would all be able to eat this egg.
Yeah.
One egg.
Yeah, and you have little leftovers. Yeah.
My goodness.
So
Jesus.
they were big. They weighed 23 pounds. Imagine a 23-pound egg. That's 10.5 kilos in sane units.
Oh,
Can you
Uh,
imagine?
It's ridiculous.
You have to. That egg has to still exit the. I'm still on
Stuck
this.
on that,
That
right?
has to exit.
Yeah. I unfortunately don't have.
You
Well,
have to feel nice.
something's
though.
stuck.
We'd have to do the math. I didn't do the math on
Ugh.
like what percentage of the body weight. But look, if you're 23 pounds is a lot, but if you weigh 2,200, it's probably
1,000 pounds,
relatively a
yeah.
small percentage of your body weight, so they could handle it.
Yeah.
Those huge eggs may
still.
have played a role in their extinction. As you hinted at, Victoria, like maybe they were tasty and got eaten. I think you were thinking of the adults. Probably not. I don't think there's much evidence of the adults actually being hunted and eaten. But people probably did eat their eggs, like we just talked about. One egg would been a very tempting source of food for humans because it would feed so many people. But yeah, there really isn't good evidence for people hunting the actual birds themselves, from what I could find. They were pretty shy birds that hung out in the deep forest. And that kind of
hey, Kirk.
yeah,
You haven't mentioned where these birds live.
I
Yeah.
know. I'm getting there.
Where?
They were in
Oh.
they were in Madagascar
Okay.
and only
Okay.
in Madagascar. So not a huge
That
area.
probably also contributed.
Well, exact. Because if you know
to
anything
their
about sort
extinction.
of, what I was just saying is that they are forest-dwelling birds. They lived deep in the jungle, and as when humans came to Madagascar and started cutting down the forest, they kind of ran out of places to live, right? They needed really large, unbroken parts
Yeah.
of the forest. And also, once the forest started to get cut down, all of a sudden they're having interaction with humans. Humans are able to find their eggs, which even further diminishes the population. And so, habitat change by humans is likely what led to their extinction. Interestingly, not so much the hunting of them, but just there was no place for
Yeah.
them anymore. Uh,
But humans were to blame, which
Yeah, so you were.
what I
yeah,
suspect.
yeah, you're right there. As humans were altering that habitat, living on an island, even a huge island like Madagascar, you just kind of run out of places to go eventually. I will say we don't know a ton about them because by the time people kind of figured out what they were, time had, they were kind of already gone as far as. When I say people, I mean like researchers and scientists who wanted to study them and catalog them and whatnot. They were stuck with like skeletons and eggs and things like that to study. There is one little sort of tidbit about them that I do want to sort of share to kind of wrap things up. And it's about the discovery of elephant bird eggs in a very, very strange place. Obviously, these days we find them in museums, but there have been some found out and about in the wild. And one place they've been found, which is strange, is that in the 1930s, an elephant egg was found buried in a sand dune in southwestern Australia.
What?
Yeah.
that's really freaking
And
weird.
then a second
What?
one,
What?
a second one was found in 1992. Can't have been,
What?
Can't have been very fresh. For our many Australian listeners who are curious about this, from what I can gather, they were found near the town of Cervantes, which is 198 kilometers northwest of Perth, kind of in that area. I'm not real familiar with that area, but maybe some of our Australian listeners are. And you're kind of going, okay, wait a minute. I hear hesitation and confusion because I literally said they were found nowhere else besides Madagascar.
That's the west coast of Australia,
Sure
isn't it?
is.
Yeah.
Sure is.
So, like, way
Okay.
back, like, I would imagine continental drift, like plate tectonics, like Australia and
Okay.
Madagascar would fit together somewhere, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
not on
long
this
time
time
ago.
scale. Yeah.
I think
No.
on this time scale we have eggs floating across the ocean.
Well, I'll give you a clue then and see if this works with your hypothesis here. In this same area,
Are they going by way of coconut?
this same area has also produced finds of penguin eggs. And I think we're all aware that there aren't penguins hanging out on the western shores of Australia. So, Victoria, you are spot on. The belief is that these are eggs that floated to Australia from Madagascar, which is just mind-blowing.
How did they float?
A lot of
with
eggs will float.
nothing eating them.
Yeah, right. Well,
right.
Well,
but
okay.
That's the thing.
But
that's
here's the thing,
catching me.
Rachel.
Nothing
It's a hard
ate
shell.
them.
right?
These shells are very, very thick. Think about even an ostrich egg. That is I'm assuming as a naturalist you've handled an ostrich egg before, perhaps. They're really thick shells. This would be even thicker. So,
Okay.
I mean, if a shark found it, sure. But also it's an odd thing to be floating. It might, and
Right,
animals may
like a
not
shark isn't
understand
really
what it
going
is.
to
See,
go for that
no,
or anything like that because they don't know what it is.
They might not recognize it as
Yep,
food,
exactly.
right? Yeah.
And if you poke at it, like,
could
this
be
is
like
hard.
this
I don't know
large.
what this is.
It's a coconut. Yeah, it looks like a coconut. I can't eat that.
Exactly.
This is similar shape to that.
Yeah, and if all our Monty Python
goodness.
fans know all about coconuts floating in the ocean. So, anyways, look, that's what I have about elephant birds. A lot of my numbers and stuff. I give a shout out to the fine editors at Wikipedia who collected some of those numbers for me. But that's what I have. I just wanted to teach you guys about the elephant bird because sadly they're not around anymore. But if you thought the numbers last week from the ostrich were wild, this is even doubly so. I just can't get over a 1 kilogram bird. It's just sorry, not 1 kilogram.
mean 1 ton?
1,000 kilogram birds. A 1 kilogram bird I can picture. 1,000 kilogram bird is
1 metric ton.
yeah. It's bonkers. Well, look, we're gonna take a break, and Rachel, you're up next.
All right, welcome back, everyone. Kirk, Victoria, do you know why snakes bite? Question.
Because they have mouths.
Okay.
I mean, depends
Fair,
on
that's
the
what I
snake,
tell
right?
I mean,
children.
I'm being a smartass, but like, people say, "Oh, is this animal bite? Does this animal bite or that animal bite?" And my answer is, anything with a mouth can bite you.
That's what I tell everyone as well. My partner
true.
absolutely hates it because they'll ask all the time, and I'll be like, "It has a mouth. It can bite." It's fun. Well, so there's a lot of research that goes into like venom and anti-venom when it comes to snakes, but there's not as much that goes into like snake behavior or snake ecology or their life histories and things like that, partially because a lot of people have that like fear of snakes, they don't like snakes. There's a lot, and there's some valid reasons why, like there are snakes that are deadly to humans.
Right.
However,
Yes, indeed.
one enterprising person, scientist, decided to change this.
Okay.
In a paper that was published in Nature, in Scientific Reports, but I found it on nature.com. We love open source, open access. It's great. A study of defensive behavior of a venomous snake as a new approach to understand snake bites. So generally speaking, when we think about snakes and why they bite, especially venomous snakes, now snakes generally speaking will give lots of warning before they bite, right? Their first instinct is to get away from people because we're big, we're loud, we're scary, and maybe we're going to hurt or eat that snake, But because a lot of research has been done into the venom and the anti-venom properties of snake and snake bites, we don't know why. A lot of like thought processes like, oh, you got too close. Oh, you stepped on it. All of those types of things. But why? So, I'm going to mess up his name and I do apologize. This was done in Brazil. So we're going to go Joha Miguel Alves Nunes decided to take this on with other technicians and decided that they wanted to examine the environmental variables of why snakes bite. Okay?
Huh. Okay.
Okay.
And they did this not with any snake species. They did this with a pit viper.
Okay.
The Jacara pit viper in Brazil. Okay.
Wow. Okay.
Which is a pretty venomous and interesting snake on its own. Okay. So they found a lot of. They found
hardcore.
out. Just wait.
Okay.
So they found out a pretty significant amount of information, which is really cool, and why snakes bite in the first place. Why are they doing this defensively? And they found that smaller snakes, especially females, tend to be more aggressive and tend to be more likely to bite in the first place. It also depends on the time of day, the time of year, how warm the temperature is, and if you step on a snake, where you step on the snake.
Okay.
If you step on the snake and you like step on the head, it's more likely to bite you there versus along the body or the tail. Now, you're a scientist and you want to study this. So what do? You conduct this experiment.
Oh no.
I don't like where this is going.
No.
But you don't want to, however, introduce other things such as different people. So, so Alves Nunes volunteered for this very, very willingly, I might add.
Oh man.
he put
Oh dear me.
he put on a protective boot
Okay,
that
smart.
went 3 centimeters above his knee. It was a leather boot, and it generally had like a really good like foam as well insert to make sure it was covered in foam as well. So they're leather boots and they were covered in foam that went above his knees.
Okay, before the foam part, I
And
was like,
he-
this sounds like my Renaissance festival boots, but okay.
Oh. And when they were studying this, they wanted a large sample size. So they didn't want to hurt the snakes or anything. So what they did was they put the snakes and a human together. They put the snakes inside of a ring on the lab floor until they got used to it. And then he would step on them with the boot.
No.
Not his whole weight, just a little bit. He didn't want to step on them like to hurt them. So he didn't like hurt them.
Snakes are fragile creatures.
He did this. Kirk. They tested with 116 different animals. He did this 30 times on each. He stepped on a snake over 40,000 times.
You know, Rachel, some people are just built different.
I mean, he might get a repetitive stress injury.
That's what he was at most risk
Well,
from.
he learned
here.
something. He learned something different, actually. So this particular paper and this research, this came out May 3rd, 2024. So this is very, very recent research.
This guy is up for an Ig Nobel Prize.
Super fascinating. Oh, he better be because
yeah.
He better be because
for stepping on 40,000 snakes. It's not. Oh, that was not 40,000, but there was 300. You said or something.
40. It was 116 snakes that they were using. He stepped on each snake 30 times for a total of 40,480 steps.
My concern with this, Rachel, aside from I don't ever want to be stepping on snakes, is that like by the 30th time you're stepping on a snake, at that point, is that really like true to what is going to happen in the wild? Because snakes don't get stepped on a lot. So by the 30th time...
Well, that's what they were kind of like testing. Because the thought process for the Chikaran snakes especially was like that you get too close. So they tested a variety, including stepping, because that was what everyone in Brazil like thinks what happens when you get bit.
I see. So they were trying to test like, do they get more pissed off the more times they come close to being stepped on, or do get stepped on? Okay, fair enough.
And like they were testing like the different locations along the body as well.
Sure.
So that way, to like put in variables of, oh well, if it's near the head, this will cause more. You'll be more likely to be bit versus by the tail, less likely.
And with that many snakes, they were probably testing like these ones. We're going to start with the head and work our way back. These ones we're going to start with the tail. Like they're probably trying to unwind all those confounding factors. Makes sense. Right.
And Alvarez Nunez did do an interview, which is part of where I got some of my information. And while he was doing these stimulations, actually with a rattlesnake, so they tested other species of snake found, not just the Jakara. That particular rattlesnake did puncture the boot, and he was bitten. Okay.
Presumably, hopefully they had anti-venom standing by.
They did. He was very well assisted.
Okay.
However, he did discover through this that he was allergic to both anti-venom and snake toxins.
Oh, no. No.
And he spent 15 days on medical leave.
I think maybe it's some sort of like cosmic karma there. Like if you're going to step on 40,000, steps on snakes, it's going to come back to bite you.
It very much is. Oh, that's terrible.
Yeah, no doubt.
Okay, but I will appreciate, so in the interview that he gave with Science, the next question after he told the story about his allergy development and such, the next question was, did you reconsider working with snakes after that? And this man, love him.
No way.
He said, "No, this is my passion. I love working with these animals.
I love stepping on snakes. It's my passion.
This is so exciting." And he's like, "I just reinforced the boots so I wouldn't get bitten. And then now I just don't handle the snakes. Everybody else does."
It's like, look, I don't handle the snakes. I just step on them for my passion is stepping on snakes,
now,
not handling snakes. What do you think? I'm crazy?
It's truly like amazing. And apparently like none of his coworkers, they're like, "Yeah, sure. This seems normal. Why not?" Because they like observe the behavior in the defense anyway. And like his advisor apparently pioneered the practice of offering his legs back to snakes in 1988. This was Ivan Sazma, way back in the State University of Campinas. He only did, however, his advisor only did that once.
Okay.
And didn't do it by like
Choice.
stepping on them.
He was just walking on a trail and got
Yeah.
bit by a snake.
Yeah, it's a wild time. So like they did learn some really valuable things. Like I said earlier, it's the females tend to be a little more aggressive. The smaller it is, the more likely it's going to bite you in the first place.
Okay.
The younger the snake is, in as well as how if it's hotter outside, if the temperature is much, much hotter, the snakes are more likely to bite you as well.
Look, I get a little ornery when it gets too hot too.
Facts, right. Exactly. So
what about time of
knowing
day?
those
The
facts,
time of
though,
day? That could affect the temperature too.
Time
I
of
suppose.
day didn't seem. I think it correlates more with temperature.
Yeah, okay.
But it does give credence and allow more safety measures to be put in. Like, hey, if it's really hot outside, maybe don't go walking through the grass. Keep an eye out.
your boots
If
on.
you see like a bigger snake, leave it alone. Or like a smaller snake,
yeah.
they will bite you more likely than a bigger snake will. And just keeping those things in mind as you're walking around. So that way they can, the whole idea behind this is to actually identify where people are more likely to be bitten by these particular snakes, because this is
The legs.
this study happened in Brazil. I meant like location wise.
I know you did.
Not on human bodies, Kirk.
The face when you're rolling
but-
down the hill. Oh.
Well, this is just super important because this particular species that they were studying, primarily the jacara, is a snake. It's a pit viper in Brazil, and a lot of spaces where people get bit, there's not a good place to have they're not going to have anti-venom
Sure.
back in town, you know? You have to go into town, into a city where there is anti-venom. So knowing where it is more likely for these snakes, when it is more likely for snakes to bite people, is super important.
Right. We have listeners in Brazil. So our Brazilian listeners, if you've seen one of these snakes, I want to hear about it. Send us your story. Contact at strangebynaturepodcast.com. I want to hear about it.
Yeah. Also, I very duly apologize for the pronunciation of Alvarez Nunez, his name. I tried. So my sources this week were science.org had an article titled "Researchers' Steps on Deadly Vipers 40,000 Times to Better Predict Snake Bites."
Okay, even that
And
title of the
then-
paper alone is purely clickbait for the Ig Nobel Prize Award. That's just, come on.
Oh, no, that's the interview he did. So that's the interview. The paper
Yeah.
itself was
that
a
was the
study
interview. Okay,
of defensive behavior. Yes. The paper itself that was published in Scientific Reports is the study of defensive behavior of venomous snake as a new approach to understand snake bite by Hayo Miguel
I think
Alves
it's
Nunez.
Juan.
Joie?
I think it's more like that. Yes.
Okay.
That's probably not right either, but I think it's more like that.
All right, we're going to go with that. Joao Miguel Alves Nunez et al. Published just fairly recently, May 3rd, 2024. Yeah.
Very cool.
That's all I have for you this week. Yeah. We're going to take a quick break, and when we return, it'll be Victoria.
Yes.
So we're getting toward the end of spring here in Minnesota, early summer. Spring is a great time of year if you are a mushroom forager, and it has been raining a lot this spring here in Minnesota. So I imagine that all the wild mushroom enthusiasts here have been doing pretty well this year.
Absolutely. I have many. I have several friends. It's great.
Oh yeah, that's the thing. If you have some mushroom foragers who are close to you that you trust, key.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure you have permission to collect from where you are, though. I have to talk to people all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. One of the most sought after spring mushrooms is, of course, the Morel.
Of course.
Oh,
and
yes.
These are delicious, but they also have a bit of mystique about them because they can be really quite difficult to find. Until extremely recently, there was no reliable way to cultivate them, especially kind of indoors in a controlled environment. Outdoors, they've been doing that for a bit. But anyway, as a consequence, they are quite expensive. They sell for around $50 a pound when fresh and $200 a pound dried.
Whoa.
Crazy.
So yeah, they have kind of a lot of cachet. They're a very prestigious mushroom in the mushroom world. And they have a very distinctive look. They have a thick, kind of stubby, whitish stem, which is actually hollow if you cut it in half, and a long conical brown or yellow cap. And the distinctive look is that this conical cap is honeycombed, deeply pocketed and ridged. It looks
kind of like brains, but inside out.
A little bit, yeah.
Interesting.
I've only eaten them myself a couple times, and actually the only time I've seen one in the wild was this kind of funny story. This is when I was working at the same nature center where Kirk still works, and I had taken, I think it was a kind of pretty rambunctious group of kids out in the woods in early summer, and I'd been having my hands full managing them, and all of a sudden this boy comes up to me saying, "Look what I found! What is it?" And he's holding this enormous Morel, probably 6 inches long, and I'm like, "Oh my God, where did you find that?"
Oh my goodness,
that's worth a lot of money, child.
Yeah, I didn't know where it was. And as Kirk alluded to, actually the park district where he works and where I worked at the time, you're not really allowed to pick things. Now, as part of a program, we have done that. That's allowable. But at the moment, I wish, I my best move was just to leave it there. So I told him to just leave it on the ground, which I've sort of regretted ever since. But anyway, we've talked on this podcast before about some poisonous mushrooms, including some deadly mushrooms such as the death cap. And we've talked about how you need to be really careful and know what you're doing if you're going to go foraging. Go with somebody who is an expert, so you can learn. However, there are 6 species of edible mushrooms that you find in the wild that are kind of informally known as the safe 6 because they're really pretty easy to identify. And the Morel is one of those. So actually, if you're a longtime listener, you may recall we had a guest on a while ago on an episode that talked about a poisonous mushroom called the false Morel that creates rocket fuel in your stomach when you eat it.
Right.
Even false Morels, they don't look that much like Morels if you have even the slightest knowledge of what you're doing.
So and I have a short little thing is that Lang's partner, who I work with, Shelby, she made him a little foraging book, or he made her one of the way. And underneath false Morel, they have looks nothing like a Morel if you know what it looks like.
Right, exactly. That's the perfect way to say it. So that's all to say, if I had decided to take that Morel that kid had found and eat it, I would have probably been pretty safe, even though I am not a mushroom expert.
Sure.
Except that I recently found out that Morels can, in fact, be poisonous.
What?
There you go,
Yeah, so there was a case recently at a sushi restaurant in Bozeman, Montana, which
I heard
maybe
about
that's
this.
your first problem. Yeah. Where 51 people were taken ill. 3 of those were hospitalized and 2 people died, actually.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And similarly, in 2019, 30 people who ate morels at a Michelin-starred restaurant in Valencia, Spain, got sick, and one died.
Did they lose a star for that?
Oh, I would
not.
hope so. What?
You would think.
Seemed like an oversight.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we'll get into some of the details why that didn't happen later, but or maybe we won't. In the Spanish case, the woman who died had been vomiting profusely, and she was determined to have died due to like an underlying kidney disease.
Okay.
And
not great, though.
In the Bozeman case, those hospitalized were suffering from severe diarrhea and vomiting also, and subsequent dehydration. And it seems that the two people who died also had underlying medical conditions that made them more vulnerable.
What a way to go.
Jeez. Yeah. It's actually quite old news that morels may be somewhat toxic. It was first recorded in the literature apparently in 1899. But, these two relatively high-profile recent cases are quite unusual because the vast majority of information that's out there in the literature, case studies, and so forth is about morel eaters suffering not from gastrointestinal distress, the way these folks did, but from neurological symptoms similar to drunkenness. Well,
like drunkenness?
Yeah. So it's actually pretty mild.
Okay.
So there's widespread reports over the years of people consuming morels and then usually like 8 to 12 hours later being afflicted by dizziness, muscle weakness, instability on their feet. So that is not being able to stand up, uncoordination, tremors, and sometimes mild hallucinations.
I was going to ask if there was a hallucinogenic component to that. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a very thorough 2021 report by Josep Piqueras, who's a Catalan medical doctor and mycologist. And he recounts numerous instances, mostly in Spain, of these neurological effects, which he calls a cerebellar syndrome. So these effects are pretty mild, generally to moderate, as I said, and usually resolve within a few days. There are no known deaths that are related to the Morel cerebellar syndrome.
Okay.
And interestingly, the main factor uniting almost all of these neurological cases is that the morels were eaten fresh rather than dried. So cooked.
Right. Yeah.
But they hadn't been dried. And in the two cases where they were dried, it's possible they were not dried completely. And also, usually the victims ate quite a large amount, usually over 300 grams.
Ooh, yeah, mushrooms in moderation, people. Mushrooms in moderation.
Another common factor in a lot of these cases is that the morels were foraged from the banks of a stream or river, and frequently there were ash trees nearby. So kind of intriguing.
Interesting.
I'm intrigued.
But ash trees are not usually, I think of elm trees as being associated with morels.
Yeah. It didn't say that they were necessarily growing on ash trees in all the cases.
They were just in the area.
There were ashes nearby, yeah.
Okay.
But what about these two outbreaks from the restaurants in Bozeman and Valencia? First of all, what I didn't reveal earlier is that the morels served in Bozeman had a hot marinade poured over them, but they were not fully cooked.
Right.
And in fact, it is well known among mycologists, at least, if not among sushi chefs in Bozeman, Montana, that morels, like most mushrooms, do contain toxins when raw that get deactivated by cooking. So, in fact, the recommendation is always to thoroughly cook all mushrooms. And in the case of the Montana sushi restaurant, it seems likely that this was the main problem due to the ignorance of the chef about this toxicity.
Right.
In the case of the restaurant in Valencia, the morels were cooked, but while the chef normally sourced his mushrooms from his mushroom guy normally sourced his mushrooms from Spain and other places in Europe, apparently this crate that caused the poisoning was, unbeknownst to the chef, actually cultivated morels from China. So there's suspicion that they might have been contaminated. And this is one of the reasons why the chef was exonerated and retained his Michelin star.
Okay.
Mushrooms. it was not his fault. Mushrooms do take up stuff from the environment, and sometimes pesticides are used on cultivated mushrooms, particularly in countries with lower standards about these things, or unenforced standards, as the case may be. And, as with the issue of the riverbanks and the ash trees, it's quite possible that there's just factors we don't understand in the natural environment that can affect the toxicity of mushrooms.
Yeah, that's what we talked on the show before. Like even the time of day that they're picked, the elevation up a mountain they were picked at. Like there's so many.
What part of them you step on first, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You just step on the head of the mushroom.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or the gills. So in summary, cook your mushrooms, everyone.
Wow.
Yep.
I'll say I've only eaten Morels one time. And I'll tell you all about it in our bonus after the show.
Ooh.
Awesome.
I've only seen Morels one time, and it was with you, Kirk.
Was it? That's
fun. It was at that one school that you help out with. Mm-hmm.
I have not seen them there since.
That's fair.
Well, my sources this week were that article that I mentioned by Josep Piqueras from Fungi Magazine, spring of 2021. Also, Ars Technica article and the CDC. And that is all I have this week.
Awesome. Thanks, Victoria.
Awesome. Thanks, Victoria.
All right. Absolutely. Thank you to listeners. And
good talking to you. See you next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks everyone for listening to today's show. Be sure to subscribe. New episodes drop every Wednesday, and we love sharing this strange world with all of our listeners. If you would be so kind as to leave us a 5-star review, that would be great. It lets other lovers of the strange discover the show. You can reach out to us on social media by searching for Strange by Nature Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. You can send us an email as well. Our address is contact@strangebynaturepodcast.com. If you want more information about the show, you can also check out our website, which is strangebynaturepodcast.com. Until next week, get outside, stay curious, and embrace the strange.